Breeding reptiles can be such a rewarding business, but you need to make sure that you're doing it legally and ethically. Today's video is going to be about how to make sure you're properly licensed, permitted, and you've got the right business structure for your business. So let's dive right in. Okay guys, so welcome back to our channel. I am Audra with Flawless Crested Geckos, and today we're going to discuss licensing, permits, and also some of your normal business structures as far as how you set up your breeding business. So let's jump right in with licensing permits. Now, each state varies, so from state to state, you're going to have to actually go to whatever department in your state gives licenses, permits, and things like that for animals specifically. So your wildlife local government or your state government to find out for sure what licenses, what you're required to have. But as a whole, licenses and permits is something that is very important. And the aspects that fall under those licenses are things such as conservation of the animals, dealing with endangered species, dealing with venomous species. So you may have a situation of certain states require you to have certain permits. If you have, for instance, just for an example, venomous snakes, you may be required to carry a permit. You may not even be able to keep said animals in that particular state. Those are just some examples of what you need to be on the lookout for as far as permits are concerned. Some of the other aspects of permits and such are invasive species. So the one thing that it's just in local, or I guess you wouldn't say local, but just in recent memory for me is the Florida Wildlife and Fisheries. So the FWC had put a ban on Burmese pythons. So just knowing that certain species aren't allowed in certain states, or you're not allowed to keep in certain states, it just is important to know the legalities behind exactly what you can and cannot keep. You don't want to get in trouble with your government or your local, government and enforcement. As far as like wildlife enforcement is concerned. So again, it varies state by state. If you followed us for very long, you know that we are from South Carolina. And we don't actually have any really stringent permits or licenses as far as the species that we keep. And across the board in South Carolina, you can actually keep venomous. And really and truthfully, maybe it should be a little regulated, but in South Carolina, it's not. So for us, we don't have to have any very special permits or anything to breed ball pythons nor crested geckos. So that's good for us, right? But you also need to take into account that there are federal regulations that you must at least be knowledgeable about. So if you're dealing with, like, say, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, or APHIS, which is also the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, you may want to just familiarize yourself with some of those federal regulations as far as like interstate travel, things that would be very important for you to know if you, like, say you vend different shows, or you ship internationally. Some of those permits and licenses require you to go through U.S. Fish and Wildlife and to have import and export permits. So those are all things that you can find as it pertains to your business from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, from their information on their website, from calling them, just finding out if you're trying to move animals across states, or if you're trying to move animals internationally. You just kind of need to know what you need to have and what you don't have to have. So that's very important when dealing with federal regulation permits and licenses. As it pertains to U.S. Fish and Wildlife, you also need to be aware of certain acts, certain bills that are passed through the government. So one in particular that absolutely affects us as a business across our country is the Lacey Act. USARK is one of those organizations that fight and lobby for our right to continue to be able to move these animals across state lines and things like that. So just familiarizing yourself with parts of like the Lacey Act that pertain specifically to reptile breeders, and what's on our what is on your non-native species list, what permits you must have for specific non-native species to your state or to other states that you're bringing these animals into. Again, I'm going to refer back to Florida, because Florida is one of those states that they have some pretty stringent rules as it pertains to carrying animals into their state and what exact species that you're dealing with. Certain turtle species, certain lizard species, certain obviously snake species. It's just very, very important that you know if you are taking on one of these less known or less common species. A lot of times they may be on that endangered list, or they may be non-native to the specific state that you're traveling to, in this example, Florida. So it's just important to kind of get the nuts and bolts of that as far as federally across the board, because those are some common permits and licenses that you may have to have, even if it doesn't pertain directly to the state that you're living in and running business out of. And as it pertains to the state that you're actually running out of, it's important to, again, check your U.S. Fish and Wildlife, like your actual fish and wildlife for your particular state as far as your state government. But some counties within states have their own ordinances as it pertains to certain species of reptiles. So just make sure you check all your bases. You've got your federal, your state, and your local governments that you need to kind of do your research on. And you can find that stuff pretty easily by just going to their websites or go into your county administration buildings and things like that. You can find out about permits and licenses and stuff that you specifically need from those organizations. So hopefully that helps you out with licensing and permits as it pertains to interstate travel and interstate travel. Once you have those licenses and permits, make sure that you maintain them. Some of those licenses and permits are not like permanent. So it's not a one and done type of thing. Some of them require that you are paying a certain type of fee annually, some are monthly. It just depends, and varies from state to state. But make sure you remain in compliance with the regulations that are attached to your specific license or permit. And also remember that you need to make sure you maintain good records of what animals you have. So in case somebody comes looking for, your inventory or something like that, which is also helpful to keep really good records of your inventory for your yearly taxes for the IRS and all that kind of stuff. So inventory is one of those important things and can absolutely definitely help you as it pertains to your license and maintaining your license or your permits from year to year.
Hey guys, Flawless Crested Geckos here, Will, Audra, and we're here to tell you about our Patreon.
Yes, going through tough times, you got to know that Flawless is always going to have your back. If you go over to patreon.com/flawlesscrestedgeckos, you'll see all the perks and benefits it is there for you to come and support us on our Patreon. $50 a month turns around and goes right back into your Flawless Crested Geckos savings account for you to use towards your next purchase.
Any purchase. We also give awesome benefits such as 5% off the top of the price of the gecko. We give free merchandise, t-shirts, we have stainless steel tables, tools, yes. All kinds of goodies. We also give free shipping to our members all year round, no blackout dates. And, we give awesome tips, or we think we do anyway.
That's right. So go over to patreon.com/flawlesscrestedgeckos
and join our family.
Yes.
So the second part of this video has to do specifically with business structure. So when you're beginning your business, you're going to want to kind of decide exactly what structure you would prefer to set it up as. Some of those structures include like sole proprietorship, partnership, LLCs, which is like a limited liability corporation, and then you work into some of the bigger corporations and such. So let's kind of break that down. Sole proprietorship is when you are personally liable for anything that goes on with your business. So you are one owner. you take on all financial responsibility and any type of tax liabilities that go along with your business. Moving on into a partnership, that's when you're actually sharing with another individual. And that in that particular business structure, you as the two of you or whatever, you're still personally responsible and liable for anything that happens inside of that business to whatever your customers or things like that. And as it pertains to your federal taxes and such, that is a classification that still you are individually as partners responsible for that tax responsibility. Then you're moving on into an LLC. Now here at Flawless, we are an LLC, which is a limited liability corporation. And so what that does is the business itself is its own collateral. It's its own entity. So it's outside of, like, for Will and I being personally responsible as far as it's very safe as far as your assets are concerned. So it's a little, what we would say, a little overkill for like our businesses, because we don't typically have anything to do with like property damage or businesses like landscaping business, for instance. Typically, it's good to set up an LLC for like a landscaping business, because you may go to somebody's house and say your lawnmower decides to go on the fritz and it runs into the corner of their house, and now you are dealing with, being held personally responsible for that person's house. But if you're an LLC, then it goes against the business and not you individually, as it pertains to legal liabilities. As far as your tax, liabilities, things like that, your tax responsibilities, obviously anytime you own a business and any type of entity, you want to make sure that you take care of your taxes and stuff and such as that. So just keep in mind that even though that does protect your assets, meaning if the business goes under, you might not necessarily as an individual go under with it. So you would have the opportunity to kind of keep your assets to the side, whatever you've made, and it won't be jerked from you if something does happen to the business or you're sued for something. So the business will be sued. So then you've got corporation, which are much larger, and people who set up corporations, they already have an idea that they are going to scale this business to a very large entity. Along with corporations come a lot more regulations and a lot more liability as it pertains to the actual business. So they have to jump through a lot more hoops, and due to those hoops that they have to jump through, and the regulations and the permits and the licenses and fees and stuff that they have to pay, they do get a lot of like tax credits and stuff and such as that. But rest assured, these corporations are paying their proper proportion of taxes to our IRS. If you sit down with a very experienced CPA or accountant that you have doing your own taxes, that professional can explain to you further that a lot of these businesses, a lot of people think that big corporations don't pay taxes, but they absolutely do. It's just in a different way. So that kind of encompasses all the business structures. Now, it will vary as far as your small business from state to state. You will need to, obviously, before you even actually set your structure up, before you set your LLC or whatever up, you go to your Secretary of State website, whatever state you're in, and you go through the proper proceedings for them to grant you the name of your business, and then you'll go and get your EIN number from the IRS, and then you will be able to have all the moving parts of setting up your business structure appropriately. And your EIN number is just your identification number for your business that basically says that you sell stuff to make money, and so that the IRS can pretty much monitor you. So just, keep in mind those are the things that you're going to need. If you are interested in this series and like to deep dive into business structure, setting up permits, going through step by step, and us actually being able to help you do that from stage one, check out our Patreon. Our Patreon members can attest that we have definitely jumped in and helped people understand exactly what stages or what steps they have to take with their states. And the ones that have lived in our state, we've been able to really help because we obviously went through that. Each paperwork, each piece of paper thoroughly with them. So if you are interested in deep diving and understanding business structures and how to set things up and help with like your taxes from year to year, we're not tax professionals, but we do this regularly, and we kind of know how to organize things and how to set it up to where you, along with, well, you're getting the most benefit and bang for your buck and buck for your business, but also you're doing the appropriate thing for our government as a whole. You never want to mess with the IRS. They are not nice if you owe something to them. So just remember that this is a series. We had part 1 last week. This is part 2. And stay tuned next week for part 3. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Audra. This is Flawless Crested Geckos, and I am out. Bye!